Let's learn how to work with list boxes and how to sort data from a list box stored to a list of objects using a Lambda expression. Let's go ahead and open Visual Studio and let's go create a new project. And we want to create a GUI application. So we want to work with a Windows Forms .NET framework. And let's just call this Sort Me. And we'll click OK. And it's going to create a brand new GUI application for us. And I'm going to go ahead and make that form a little bit bigger, and I'm going to make sure that I can see my toolbox. And here's all my toolbox information. I'm not going to worry about changing the form name and all that type of stuff. I also want to go view the properties window, so I clicked on View Properties window. But I just want to drop a list box on that form. And then I'm going to drop a button on that form, and I'm going to drop another list box on that form. And we'll resize these components, make them a little bit nicer. So I have a list box, button, and a list box. Now let's come back over to here, and remember, if you're a good programmer, you're going to go and you're going to change the names of all these components and make it look a lot nicer. But we're just not going to do that for the sake of time on this video. Come back over to the project. We want to make a new class. Right mouse click on the project, add class, and let's go ahead and call this class person.cs and click add. And we're going to make the class public scope, and then we're going to come in and add two properties. We're going to add a public string name and a public int age. That's all we're going to add to this class. So we're just going to make two attributes, two properties associated with it: name, which is a string; age, which is an int. Go ahead and save that and come back over to your form. And now we want to go ahead and do some work. Now remember, if you want to access the source code for that form, you can just press the F7 key, and that will take you to the source code for that class that you're working with. Now the first thing that we want to do, let me come back to the designer, is we want to take all of the elements that are going to be in this list box, and we're going to store them to a list of objects. So let's go ahead and add some items to the list box. Remember, items is the big property that you work with when working with the list box, and it's simply a collection of information. It is a list, in fact. So when you work with the list box, if you notice, once again, you just click on the ellipsis, the three dots, and now you can start typing in some information. Let's type in Mickey, Donald, Daffy, Goofy, Daisy, and Pluto. And we'll click OK. And then what we want to do is we want to click on this button, and we're going to go and take all of this data, store it to a list, generate a random age for these names, and then we're going to sort based upon that age. So let's go to the click event for this button. Now, two different ways you can do it. You can either double click on the button, or you can go to the click event and double click right there. Usually though, we just double click on the button, takes us right there. Now before I actually type in some code in the click event for that button, I want to go and create a variable that's going to be visible throughout this whole class. So I'm going to go and create a brand new list, and we're going to make that list of type person, and we'll call it a list person, and we'll say let's go ahead and make the new list of person. So this variable, list person, will now be visible throughout this entire class. First thing I want to do, in case they click the button multiple times, I just want to go ahead and make sure the list person is cleared out. So if there were any elements in it, they're wiped out now. Then what I want to do is I want to take all the elements or all the items in this list box, and I want to create a brand new object in my list I just created in my source code, and I want to generate a random number. So how would I do that? For int icount, let's go ahead and start it at 0, because you remember list box start at 0. And then we want to go ahead and say as long as we are less than our ListBox 1, I think that's the name of it, then items that we have and the count inside of it. Then we'll go ahead and stay in our loop. And what do we want to do in our loop? Well, we want to go and grab the first item out of that list. Now there's different ways to do it. One way is you simply say the ListBox and you specify the selected index that you're working with. And we could say iCount, meaning the first time through we go and grab position 0 of the ListBox. Now that I have position 0, I can actually start working with that item and I can do whatever I want with it. And if you use this method of saying I'm going to go and change the selected index, then that will actually come out over here, and as you go through that loop it will actually grab the first item, 0, and highlight it, the next item, and by the time you're done this one will be highlighted, the last one. If you don't want to have it go through and highlight elements in that list, then another way you could do it is you could say go and grab the position of that list box and do something with it. So in other words, let's do this. Let's go ahead and create an object in our list person by saying listPerson.add, and we want to make a new person object. And then we want to go ahead and say in our new list we just created, now that we have that object, let's go and access the first object that's in there because it's in position 0. And we want to change the name attribute, sorry I grabbed the wrong one there, the name attribute to be our ListBox1 dot items bracket iCount dot toString. So that will actually go and say go out to the list box and go get the item position of that list box, which is 0, and then grab the text of it. So it'll come out to here and it'll grab the word Mickey and then store that to the name attribute for that object. So let's make sure we understand it once again. If we used it this way, we are actually telling the program select that item, select that item, select that item, and you'll see those items actually be highlighted as it goes through the loop. But it'll go through really fast so you won't even notice it. In the end though, when you're done, this one will be highlighted. Instead of actually highlighting those values, let's go access the position. We made a new object in our list. We then said go to that new object we just created, access the name attribute, go to the list box, go to the items in the list box, go to position 0 in the list box, and grab the text out of it and turn it into a string. Let's go ahead and do this. While we're there, let's go ahead and generate a random number, and that's going to be age, and we want to make a random number. Well, how do I do that? Well, first of all I have to come in here and make a new random variable, and in that random number we have to specify that we're calling the constructor. So this will now be a random number, and we can say do a random dot next, so it'll bring an int between 0 and 100, with 0 being inclusive. So this will now go generate a random number and store it to the age for the object stored in position 0. So by the time we're done doing this code, we should have all of the elements from the list box names, Mickey, Donald, Daffy, and so forth, stored over with a new object created in the list person, and then we go and access the age attribute for that object and change the random number. I'm just going to set a breakpoint. Let's run it and take a look at the code that's being executed. Let's run it, and we pause right there. So let's go take a look. That's how you set a breakpoint, by the way. You just click on that line. Let's go look at that variable. I put my cursor on it, and then I click on this arrow. The first object has Mickey 23. The second object has Donald 63, Daffy 63, Goofy 18, Daisy 73, and Pluto 26. So that does seem to be working, that we created a brand new object for every item in the list box, and we grabbed the text out of the list box, stored it to the attribute name, and then generated a random number. Now another thing you can do, if you truly want to try to work better with random numbers, is you can seed the random number. In other words, trying to tell it to act differently. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to let the random number be somewhat random. But you could come into here and you can go Google that, how to seed a random number, and this would allow you to get more of a random number, because remember, random numbers really aren't that random at all. Now that we have the list created, let's go ahead and hide that breakpoint. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and sort our brand new list we made. And we'll say list person dot sort, because there's a sort method associated with it. And in that sort method, we can tell it how do we want to sort it. And the way that we're going to sort this is we're going to use what we call a Lambda expression. It's almost like an arrow function in JavaScript. And the first thing you do is you say, okay, the sort function, the sort method, receives 2 parameters at a time, because it's going to go out to this list. Whoever wrote this sort method says go out to the list or the collection and grab 2 elements at a time, like a bubble sort. And so we have to say that we're grabbing 2 elements. We'll just call it X and Y. You can call it whatever you want. You could have called it Bubba, you could have called it buckwheat, alfalfa, Darla, Johnny, anything you want. But it's going to go and say grab 2 items from the list, put the first item in X and the second item in Y, and continue to do this until you're all done sorting that list. The next thing you have to do is you have to specify you're using a Lambda expression. So you say equal, greater than. That's the syntax for Lambda. Then you have to tell it how do you want to actually sort it. We want to say let's go ahead and sort X dot, because remember X says go grab one of the objects out of that list. Well, that list is an object. What type of object? It's a person object. So we could say let's sort X by age, and let's compare that to Y's age. And this is an ascending sort. And so what it's going to do is it's going to say, hey, we have 2 objects. Hey, X object, is your age less than the Y age? Yeah, it is. Oh, okay, we're cool. Otherwise, we got to switch things around, swap you around. And that will actually sort that entire list. The only thing we have left to do is to write all those items out to the new list box we have. And we could have just cleared the old one, but we'll do the new list box. I'm going to copy that again. And instead of doing list box 1, let's just use our list person. And in that list person, we want to check the count. And as long as we have an item in that list person, we want to go to list box 2, items, and we want to add the list person iCount, and we'll add the name. So let's make sure you understand what I did here. This now says go grab all the items one at a time from list box 1, generate a random number, sort that whole list that we just created, and then take that list and add them to list box 2. In fact, right before that, let's do one more thing. Let's say listbox2 dot, we want to clear all the items in that list box. So remember, what are we working with at the list box? We're working with items. So we need to say dot items dot clear. That will wipe out any items we might have in list box 2, and then we'll add brand new items to it. Let's go run that program and just see how it works. So we're going to say click on this, go generate a brand new list of objects, of person objects, right there. And we're going to say take that name and add it to the person object and generate a random number for the age, and do the next one and the next one and next one. Then we're going to sort it, hopefully in ascending order. And then we're going to go ahead and clear anything that might be in here. And then we're going to take each item one at a time, from the list person and add it over to the box. And that now sorts by age. Now how can we confirm that? Well, let's go ahead and come back over to here and let's set a breakpoint and come back to our program that is running and do it one more time. And let's take a look at list person. Donald's 47, Daisy's 63, Goofy's 72, Daffy's 76, and Pluto's 77. So unfortunately already in this one, those ages are already there. Why is that? Well, because we already executed that sort. We've already done that sort. So let's set a breakpoint back to here before we run it. Let's go ahead and continue that and run it one more time. Now let's look at it before we sort. We see Mickey's 93, Donald's 65, Daffy's 50, Goofy's 52, Daisy's 83, and Pluto's 97. So it looks like Daffy should be first, Pluto should be second, Goofy should be second, and Pluto should be probably the last one. Let's see if that works. We continue it. Daffy, Goofy, and Pluto's last. So we can see the sort is working, and that's an ascending sort. If I wanted to do a descending sort, just put Y there and put X there. Let's run it one more time and see if it works. We'll stop right here. We take a look at the items. Mickey's 75, Donald's 73, Daffy's 42, Goofy's 54, Daisy's 43, Pluto's 28. So Mickey should still be first. Donald should be second. Goofy should be third. Let's see if that works. Mickey, Donald, Goofy. So we know that that's a descending sort, meaning that we're sorting from highest number to lowest number. And that's how you use a lambda expression, and you can sort a list and put items back in a list box.